I'd like to call this meeting of the Wilmer City Council to order at 6 o'clock. On behalf of the City Council, I'd like to extend a warm welcome and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Your presence reflects the strong commitment to civic engagements, and we truly value your interest in the work and progress of our city. As a reminder, this is a formal meeting of the City Council. We ask that everyone in attendance maintain respect and decorum throughout the proceedings. Disruptions, outbursts, inappropriate language will not be permitted. Individuals may be asked to leave or be removed by the Sergeant of Arms. Thank you again for being here and for supporting the continued progress of our city. At this time, I will ask Chief Kemp to lead us in invocation. Please remain standing afterwards, and Ms. Phyllis Slau will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Join me in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, first and foremost this evening, we just honor you and honor your holy name. We ask this evening, Father, as our honorable council conducts the business and the affairs of our wonderful community, that you would give them wisdom beyond themselves, Lord, to make all of the decisions that are for the best and for the good of our growing, beautiful community and its citizens. I ask blessings upon them, Father. Not just the council tonight and our mayor and mayor pro tem, Father, but all of our community, all of the citizens that make Wilmer great and beautiful. I'd ask that your hand would be upon them, that they would prosper, not just in financial things and material things, but they would prosper in health and they would prosper in joy in their families. Lord, I just ask, God, that we would always strive to do everything to bring honor to your name, to the citizens of this community. And just ask, Lord, that your mercy and your grace and your kindness and your passion would be real in each and every one of them, each and every day. We ask that you bless Wilmer in this meeting tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Downs, did anyone sign up?
We have no comments.
Thank you. We will now move on to the budget week session.
Review and discuss the proposed FY 2025-2026 budget. Our consulting finance director, Ms. Patricia Albert.
Good evening, council and mayor and audience. I'm happy to be here to go over the fiscal year 2026 budget and the tax rate. I believe you all have a copy of my presentation that I have prepared for tonight. And so this is just a brief overview of what we can expect as highlights for the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget for all the funds of the city. We are going to start with the general fund, and that is the major fund of the city. That is where the majority of the property tax revenues go to, so that the city can pay for maintenance and operations. So we're going to go ahead and start. If you flip your page over to the first charts and tables, you will see a historical table of the tax rates for the last 5 years, and that includes this year and next year. So as you can see there on the upper left-hand corner, you can see the tax rates from fiscal year 2022 over to the current year and then the proposed rate for fiscal year 2026. The fiscal year 2026 proposed maintenance and operations rate is that 0.325954 per $100 in value. The M&O rate is the amount needed by the general fund to pay its bills, okay? The INS rate is the debt service rate, and that rate is proposed at 0.141974. That rate gets the revenue that is needed for the INS fund to pay the city's debt obligations for fiscal year 2026. This is a 3.58 cent increase over the current fiscal year tax rate. And just to delve a little bit into how that tax rate is calculated, the city has contracted with the Dallas County Tax Assessor Collector, who calculates all of these rates for the city. And in the proposed budget document at the very end, I included a copy of that tax rate worksheet that he prepares for the city. And it outlines all the different numbers that he uses, including the TIF property taxes that we have to transfer over on a yearly basis, and also the amounts needed to pay the next year's debt service. So the next page just gives you a little bit of historical information on the certified property.
Patricia?
Yes,
Hold on. And is the 3% increase mainly due to INS?
yes,
So it's the debt that we've taken on with the new facility?
yes,
So it's not an increase due to the normal operations?
no, and I'll go into that when we advance through the
Okay.
slides. I'm going to explain all of
Okay.
that, but
I just
yes,
wanted to make sure that was there at this point, the total, because everybody's gonna think, we're going up almost 4 cents per $100 assessed value, but it's because of the new
yes,
buildings.
the city has a big debt payment coming up, so we have to pay for that. Okay. And so the certified property values, as you can see, they've been going up year after year. 53%, and then 44, 34, and then this year, fiscal year 2026, they went up 33%. Okay, that is from the Dallas CAD. And then you'll see a little bar graph there below it, so that you can see the progress of how the city of Wilmer is doing as certified values go. Now, the property tax revenues for the last 5 years, I've broken them down by general fund and INS fund, from 2022 all the way to estimated 2026, so that you can see how it's increasing the property tax revenues year over year. So this current fiscal year, we've collected about $10.3 million, $3 million which went into the debt fund, and 7.3 which went into maintenance and operations. Next year, with the proposed tax rate, we would put 10.2 million into the general fund and 4.4 million into the INS fund. Again, these are just estimates depending on how much we collect. And you can see a little chart beneath there. The next page just talks a little bit more about how does this all work. So the city of Wilmer's tax rates were calculated, like I said, by the Dallas County Tax Assessor Collector, and are based on many factors, including, and most important, they take the certified property values that transfer to the TIF fund and debt obligations for the coming fiscal year. The city of Wilmer has several agreements for the tax increment reinvestment zone, and those developer agreements are coming up due in fiscal year 2026, so we have to be prepared and transfer some money into that fund, because in the past, we have not transferred ever any money in there. The city also has a reserve policy, which means that there should be enough funds in the bank to cover 60 days of operational expenses at all times. Having this tax rate will ensure that the city has enough funds in the bank to pay its bills over fiscal year 2026. The city has not met that reserve policy for several years. This fiscal year 2026 budget allows for a balanced budget and the required 60 days reserve. And so A portion of the tax rate, as I said before, the M&O, pays for the city's operational expenses, such as police and fire protection, parks, streets, library, city staff salaries, etc. The INS portion of the tax rate pays for the city's debt service payments, which are all the debt that are coming due for the next coming fiscal year. In the budget document, I have included a schedule of debt year over year for the future that the city will have to pay. So the average values from Dallas Central Appraisal District, they show a 14.91% increase in taxable value from 2024. If you see that screenshot that I pasted there for you, you'll see the Dallas Central Appraisal District numbers and all of the cities within the Dallas Central Appraisal District. If you see down at the bottom, it has Wilmer, and it'll give you that percent increase in value from 2024, not fiscal, they go by calendar year. So the 2025 values are current values that the city uses to calculate fiscal year 2026 revenues and tax rates. So when you take the average home value in Wilmer, a homeowner with a home valued at $178,299 currently pays about $771 in taxes. The new rate would cost the same homeowner $834, and that's an increase of about $64 per year. Any questions so far on that page?
Can we go back? I thought the state recommended a 90-day payments, and they said 60
Yes.
was the minimum. We've never met the 90, but we had met the 60.
No.
That's not what I heard you say tonight. But doesn't the state highly suggest you have 90? The areas south of us in the flood, they're having some issues because they did not have.
That's right.
And
Yes.
so we really
So-
need to have a 90-day.
Yes, the policy needs to change. We will bring to council in the next few months some policy changes, and one of my recommendations is that we move to a 90-day reserve policy, just like the other cities around us have. That's a 25% in reserves that we should have in the bank. Yes, it causes problems in the future if some catastrophe were to happen.
That's what, like, if we have a tornado that just levels the area, we can still operate as a city
For 90 days.
for 90 days until we can get stabilized, I guess you could say. And so if you think about what's happening to the south of us, some of the communities are really struggling, and the county and Austin as the state are coming to their rescue, and it's very challenging. So
It
I
is
wanted
very
to ask you, for sure, it's 90 days.
It is 90 days, and the city currently doesn't even have 60.
Right.
There's no money in there to pay. I think I calculated, we have 8 days. So after that, we'd run out of money.
Thank you.
So the next page is the general fund revenues. We can talk about the general fund revenues. You'll see a pie chart there that'll list the revenue by source. And then I have a little table next to it that shows for the proposed fiscal year 2026 that $19.2 million in revenues is what we have budgeted for that next year. Mainly, it's property taxes at 51%, sales taxes at about 32%, and then the next one, that's the largest one, is the permits and licenses, 6.84%. And then you see the rest of the distribution there with franchise taxes, fines and fees, mixed beverage tax, which is a very tiny amount, some interest, and other miscellaneous income.
May I make a comment? Is this a very conservative regarding sales tax? Because
Yes.
with the way the economy, right now, we're behind on sales tax, right? From the
Yes,
last meeting?
this is a conservative estimate, and I went ahead and consulted with the city's sales tax consultants, which is called Zac Tax, and they have some really good projections and just, I mean, a lot of information for me to gather and make my estimates for, next fiscal year. So yes, this is conservative.
Is this more or less than we have current fiscal year?
I
Because we're
think
less
I
than
think
we
it's
were
going to be
last year.
just a little bit, hold on a second, I have the
And I'm sorry,
budget
I'm
here.
just saying, you know, I know we're behind on sales tax receipts from last year, and I don't wanna say we have a budget for something when.
So I, increased it by only 2.96%. So it's a very conservative estimate over this year's sales taxes.
And our number one company that, you know, we're getting most of our sales tax, you think that, because that's what's happening now, so you think that they're going to have a better business in the
I think
upcoming
so,
year?
yes, just from seeing the numbers that are coming in right now that are not included in these projections, it's gonna be a little higher. So you'll see July go up a
Okay,
little bit more in August.
okay,
Just from, you know, day to day when I go and check, you know, the payments. I think we're gonna be all right.
okay, thank you.
I have a question, please. If I could back up to this reserve fund,
Yes.
is this, reserve that is recommended, the 90 days, is this set aside somewhere in escrow, or is it just a snapshot of what our balance is?
It is not an escrow, it is in the general operating bank account. And the city actually has a couple of other accounts in investment pools. And so we move that money over there and we keep it there. So it's not really an escrow account, but it's set aside in another bank account. And in case we need it, we would transfer that money into the operating account to cut checks.
Okay, but you say right now we've only got 6 days, 8 days?
About 8 days, yes.
And so does that mean that money has been transferred out over the year to cover other expenses and has depleted the 60 or 90-day reserve?
We've never
Yes.
even had 60.
There is
No,
not enough
we've never had
cash.
60.
Yeah, the most in the 4 years that I've been here, the most we've ever had, I think, is like 34, 35,
Right.
somewhere around that as a reserve. So,
Yes.
anyway, we've never had 60. So it was,
We've-
we've had some, more than what we have now, but we've never actually had the 60.
Right.
Yes,
In
that's
the
correct.
last 4 years, is that what
In the
you're
last
saying?
4 years that I can say.
Yes, and the last presentation, I gave you a table
Right.
that shows year to year the reserve. And it would say if we met it or not, and most of it says no. So, yeah, so it's not an escrow, but it's a different bank account where we keep the money. And it, you know, if this tax rate is approved, then as the money comes in, you know, usually around January, we get a lot of payments come in. Then what we do is we start transferring some of that money over to the pool, because it also pays us more interest than the little bank that we have here. So we move it over there and we just leave it there, and it just earns interest until such time that if we would need it. Hopefully we won't, but it's nice to have that there, you know, as a starting point, and then when we move to the 90 days, then we start transferring more money and more money. And there are some cities that accumulate quite a bit of reserve where, in the last city I was at, we created a special fund. It was called Strategic Initiative Fund, and we paid for capital purchases out of that. We just paid cash. They had like $5 to $7 million over the, I don't know how many years, and we created that fund with council, and we were able to purchase vehicles and things of that nature that we didn't have to go and bond it out anymore. We just had the cash there. And we created a plan with council on when these vehicles would be replaced. And we saved a lot of money that way. So that's one way to do it. And that's the city of Richland Hills, by the way. And I think the city of South Lake does it as well. So yes, it's an important topic to talk about.
But isn't it when you get too much of a fund balance, the state requires you to reduce the taxes?
Sometimes, yes.
So you don't wanna have too much in
Yeah,
reserve.
that's why they moved it over to a fund.
kinda
To a
cheating.
strategic initiative fund, yes.
Cheating.
You have to be kind of careful on how you manage that, and, so, like I said, these two cities that I know of, there's many, move those funds over, and then that way it saves them, and it does lower the tax rate after a while, because they won't need to be bonding out, to purchase vehicles or, you know. One of them, I know when I was there, they redid the whole, council chambers with that money, and.
Need streets.
Yes, and streets, well, that city that I worked for has a special city street fund that is funded by a little bit of sales tax, so they have their own district to pay for roads, so. Anyways, there's many different, creative ways to fund for, you know, infrastructure and what have you, so. So good questions. So what did your tax dollars get you? So they get you police protection, you all have a 911 dispatch team, fire and EMS services, you have parks, you have your streets, a senior center, which I was very impressed that you all have a senior center, community and family activities, your 4th of July, and all kinds of wonderful activities that the community can benefit from. The library puts on a lot of good programs, and then you have your planning and development as well as other services. So that leads us right into the general fund expenditures. And I wanted to point out that the general fund expenditures are increasing only by 4% over this fiscal year. So it's not the expenditures in the general fund that are driving the increase in the tax rate, okay? And I'm going to go into all of the cost-cutting measures that the staff and I and the former city administrator and I went through in order to make this budget be balanced, get us into the 60-day reserve, and have just a small percent of increase over fiscal year 25 adopted. So, as you can see there, it's a 4% increase in budgeted expenditures as compared to fiscal year 2025 adopted. There's a pie chart there that just gives you the expenditures by type, your general government, which includes, you know, administration, city secretary, finance, and so forth. Public safety, that includes your fire, police, EMS, 911 dispatch. Most of the time, public safety is the largest piece of the pie. Community development, community services, and then your non-departmental, which includes all of your 380 agreements and all kinds of agreements that you have, and some other items such as the general liability insurance that the city pays and so forth. And so total budgeted expenditures proposed are $16,769,715. And the next page, I want to go over the included items in this fiscal year 2026 proposed budget. Even though we did a lot of cost-cutting measures, we're still able to provide our employees a 3% cost of living increase, which is very important in times like these. There's also a health insurance increase that at first came in at around 26%, but they were able to negotiate it down to 14%. That 14% increase is already included in this budget, okay, so that your city employees still have the same types of coverage as they have now, and they won't be worried about having to pay extra as the new year comes by. So every measure was taken to budget prudently for the next fiscal year. There were some positions that were eliminated in the general fund. So there were a total of 9 positions that are currently vacant that were eliminated, okay? This savings in eliminated positions comes out to about $820,000 in savings. Okay, that's salaries, payroll, taxes, benefits. And in the CDC, there was one that was eliminated, and so that was about $38,684 there. In addition, there's 6 currently vacant police officers' positions that have been frozen for fiscal year 2026. They can always be added back in by council. Those are all vacant, like I mentioned. Now, in an effort to streamline operations, the following new positions and salaries are proposed. We're proposing a custodian position that will save the city money over the current cleaning contract. And then an accountant position that will take the place of the 2 current vacant positions, which is the finance manager and the accounting tech that were never filled. And we're going to replace that with an accountant. So those are the 2 that are the only ones being added. Any questions on the eliminated positions?
Can I go back and talk about the cost of living raise?
Yes.
I recall from the insurance presentation from last time, you know, we were having an increase of 14%. So we pay for the employee. The only thing is if they have a family member that they're adding.
Yes.
And I remember some of them were going up like $400-something a month. Is that right?
I'm not very familiar with the whole insurance for the dependents, so I don't know what the costs
By
are.
the next meeting for us to approve this on Thursday, I want to make sure that an employee will not be getting a less in a paycheck. They may be getting 3%, but it's all going to insurance. So with the cost, they're really not getting a cost of living raise.
Yes.
And I'm mainly concerned, I know that our higher employees are going to be probably covered. It's going to be our street crew, our water department. I want to make sure they are not hurt.
Yes.
So can you verify that by
I
Thursday
know,
night?
yes, and I know that there is a dependent coverage subsidy that the city pays. I'm not
If
sure,
it's a child.
yeah, I'm not sure what that entails, like if it's the spouse or, I don't know if the HR person.
Dean's not here.
She's here. Let me ask her to give me that presentation.
Is it just by Thursday night, if we can just
Yeah.
say that even though they get a cost of living raise, they still get a raise?
Yes.
Or it's all going to insurance?
I know that, I know exactly what you're talking about, so I'll ask Alicia.
Thank you.
Cost to employees. Okay, I'll get that in your packet by Thursday. So the next one is actually that, the next chart. It's actually for the cost increase of 14% in healthcare coverage. So it's included in the proposed budget. All other ancillary coverages such as dental, vision, they're not going up, they're staying the same. So, as Councilmember Jacobs just mentioned, I will provide council with that rate sheet so you can see how much everyone is going to be paying. Okay.
Well, everyone pays, but they don't pay equally, because if you're lower income, it's gonna affect them a whole lot more than it
It
will
is.
some of our higher income employees. So I just wanna make sure that they are getting some kind of a raise,
Absolutely.
and that they're not gonna be bringing home less money because of what they're paying for insurance.
Okay, sure, I will get that to you.
Thank you.
So other cost-saving measures we're taking when budgeting for fiscal year 2026. The capital requests shown below are not included in the proposed budget. Those capital requests were close to $1.3 million. So those were not approved. There was no way that the general fund could fund any of those requests for this year.
Is there fire chief?
You said,
The fire hydrant replacements, I thought there were several that needed to be done.
I think they were all replaced.
Were they
or
all
fixed.
replaced?
I'm not sure, I'd have to confirm that for you, which, I know we made the repairs, not, I mean, they're all functional, I just don't know how
Okay.
many or what the type is, I'd have to get with water and follow up them.
So if we have a fire, we're okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If there's a working fire hydrant, you're okay.
And that's what I wanted to
They're all,
verify.
they're
Because
all
I
working.
remember, I think they said there were like 12 of them. I'm sorry, I don't have much of a voice tonight. I just remember, I think there were like 12 of them they were looking at replacing.
So the issue that's come up in the past is that we have public and we have private hydrants. Some of the hydrants that are in the city that are in some of the mobile home parks and the businesses are private hydrants. And so some of those are in very bad shape, but they're not our hydrants.
No.
And so we're working with those entities right now, trying to get them to understand that the maintenance on those hydrants and the replacement of those hydrants is their responsibility.
Right.
They've been told in the past, or had somebody in the past that worked with them and said that it was city responsibility. So some of these hydrants have never been updated, and so there's some of those that we are working on.
We need to find them.
Yes, ma'am. Well, they're, like I said, they're in the mobile home parks and the businesses. Now, that doesn't mean that on any given day that if we were to go out and try to swing hydrants out there, that there might not be some that need to be maintained. But we're always gonna have that. That's a continuous, ongoing battle that we'll deal with through the life of any fire hydrant. So there is that. But from what I understand, the hydrants that were in need of repair have been repaired.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions regarding that slide? So to summarize, this fiscal year 2026 proposed budget has total proposed revenues of $19,208,092, and the proposed expenditures of $16,769,715, leaving about $2.4 million to go into fund balance reserves. And I do have the table right there for fiscal year 23 to 26 with the fund balance beginning and ending, and whether it met the reserve requirements for that year or not. Next major fund is the debt service fund. The debt service fund is where all of the INS portion of the property taxes go into. That's the revenue that is received. So right now, fiscal year 2025, our current year debt service is $2.448 million. Next year's debt service payments are a little over $4 million. The city's debt service payments will increase 68.4% next fiscal year. And this is due to a 2021 tax note payment that is coming due next year with a significant payment increase. This was due to the way the 2021 tax note was structured. It allowed the city to have a lower payment during the first few years of the note. And as a result, the city's tax rate now needs to increase in order to meet the city's debt obligations. And you can see the breakdown there for next year of the different series of bonds and the one tax note. The next page shows you the current year INS rate. Right now, we have 0.125688 as our rate. Next year's proposed INS rate is 0.141974. That was calculated by the tax assessor collector when we gave him and his office the amount of debt that we have for next year. And you will see the debt service for the last 5 years there in that table. And then there's a key of all the different debt obligations that the city has. And it is broken down by fiscal year. And again, just to reiterate, it is based on debt service obligations. The city of Wilmer's calculated tax rate is 0.141974, and that is detailed in the city's website under proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. The truth and taxation worksheet is where you will find that number. The next page, you will just see a snapshot of the debt service fund with its proposed revenue of 4.49 million, and then the expenditures, which is just your debt service payments that are coming due, 4.122341 in total expenditures, and sending 375,000-ish over to the fund balance. The INS fund should have a good healthy fund balance as well, usually about 1.5 times what the city's current debt service is, just in case of a catastrophe and we don't collect any money, we would always have money in there to pay the debt. Any questions on the debt service fund? So the next major fund is the water and sewer fund. On the water and sewer fund trends page, you will see a bar graph just detailing from fiscal year 2023 actuals over to fiscal year 2026 estimates of the water revenue trends. The projections of a 9% increase in water revenues from current fiscal year end of year estimates are included in the budget due to some new resident accounts. Again, these are just projections based on people that are moving into the city, building homes and so forth. We've done the same thing with the sewer revenue trends, since it, it relies on the water revenue. So projections of a 9% increase in sewer revenues from fiscal year 2025. And again, these are just estimates. We don't know how much we're going to collect. We can just go by trends in the past and so forth. Also, the water revenues are relying on climate. So it's very dry and people are out there watering their yards or using more water and so forth, and the revenues go up. It's a rainy year, they don't need to be watering their yards, so the revenues go down. So that's always contingent on the climate. So the next page will show you that the water and sewer fund budgeted revenues are 4.3 million with no increase in water rates. So you will see the income there, of $4.3 million broken down by different types. And on the next page, yes,
I'm going back to the audit,
yes,
and the gentleman stood here and said our water fund was in danger.
yes, it is.
With all the new companies that are just coming in, we're going to, not just the increase in homes and citizens, but with the data centers, John Paul Mitchell, all these things are going to have a lot more water usage.
Yes,
I am concerned because I know we only get so many million gallons a day from Lancaster, whether or not we're going to have shortages. I do know there are some cities, if it's raining and they see someone, particular companies or something with their sprinklers on, they get a citation.
yes,
I'm not saying we do that, but I think we do need to look at raising our water rates.
mhm,
Because I know our trash pickup is going up because of that contract. And
Yes.
it happens all the time, every year. But I don't want to raise our water much, but I don't want to be in danger.
absolutely. And I know that I had some conversations with your former city administrator about water rates and how they had not been looked at in many years, and how there are consulting firms that will do that for you. You can engage with a firm to come in and do a very thorough analysis, and then they will come back and recommend, like there are some that are staggered and some that is just flat. There's even like Northridge and the Hills, they do a water rate adjustment, and it depends on whether the water usage of the residency and all that, and then they pay like a flat fee, like maybe $3 a month or something like that. So there's different ways to capture that, and then they put that into the fund for their infrastructure and, you know, paying the water rate, so.
I moved back in 2012, and I don't recall the cost per gallon going up since 2012, you know, since I signed
Yes.
up. It's been the same.
Yes.
And there's nothing that's been the same price
That's
for
correct.
13 years.
Everywhere that I have worked, they do a yearly water rate increase, because they
Well, I don't know
have.
if you wanna do that, but I do know we need to go up.
Well, they do it so that they don't get hit with a huge rate increase
Oh, okay,
at
yeah.
once, so they kind of stagger it, you know, kind of little by little, so that the residents are prepared that, you know, this is gonna go up by whatever, you know, 1% or whatever percent that.
Well, I remember him saying something about what the amount we pay Lancaster, hardly very little is staying within the city. And
Yes.
so, I don't know what Lancaster's cost for us to buy water from them next year will be, but, I think as a body, we really need to look at this water.
Sure. I highly recommend it, yes, a water rate study, so that we can find out.
How expensive is it to get a water
Oh,
rate study?
I don't know. It depends on what, I don't know, every firm is different. It's not cheap.
No.
But it's well worth it, because then they not only give you, I mean, it's just very thorough, and they not only give you, you know, what, to pay for your water purchases and sewer treatment, they also give you an analysis of your infrastructure. How much is it going to cost? How old are your water lines? How old are your sewer lines? How much would it cost to replace or, you know, whatever? And they do a very thorough analysis, and they come and present it to you. You get to keep the presentation, whether you know, wanna increase the water rates or not. But it is just very, very useful for the cities to have this, because then you can also, now have a capital improvement plan. I know that the city doesn't have this. You have to have a CIP plan. How do you know where you're going if you don't know how to get there? So you have to have all of these things in place for streets, for drainage, for water, for sewer. All of it has to have a CIP plan that the council and whoever your engineer is, puts together for you.
So, another question that I have, the fee to join TWA, is that coming from general fund, or does that come from the water fund?
No, that comes from the water fund.
And how much is that payment next year? Do you happen to know off your top of your head? Cause it's,
The TRA?
it's a pretty big,
Yes, so on the next few pages, I think I have that.
and that's just gonna draw the account down even less.
Yes. So, here it is, TRA costs. I don't think I actually put the number there, but I do talk about it. I believe it is about 400 and, if memory serves me right, 430,000. And right now, I think we're paying like 200 and some thousand, because we have to pay their O&M and their debt.
Mhm.
Because we have an agreement with
We were
them.
going to try to get a business to try to assist us with that, if I recall.
Yes, we do have the TRA reimbursement, so that portion, so for this year, I know we paid about 230,000, and that's what that developer, that company paid us. I know I saw that in the books, where it comes in, you know, and it goes out, in and out,
So we were going to pay only about 20%, and they were paying 80%, something like that? Or they're not reimbursing us with 100% of that.
I'm not sure what the terms are with that company. I'm not sure about the terms. I know that it's very close to what we paid out to TRA. So let's say like 230 we paid out and they paid 225 or something.
But I think
that's
it was
what-
gonna get less within the 10, wasn't it 10 years?
I think so. So yeah, I was actually shocked when I got that letter from Wayne, from the TRA, because I said, what else do I need to budget for, you know, for water? And then here's an email from them, and I saw the debt payment, I thought, wow, okay, let me go back and, you know, plug that in there. So yeah, it's concerning, but, you know, it was something that was necessary for the city to agree to, you know.
And as more development comes out that way, it's gonna be better.
And it's just going to keep, like you
But-
said, it's gonna keep increasing because their costs are increasing. So us and some other small cities that are on it with us, they have to pay a certain percent.
Can you get that to us by Thursday?
The, letter,
Well, just how much we've actually gotta pay out of that water fund for this year and the next future years to make sure that this water fund is solid. And it's
all I
very-
have is for this year and next year. The TRA is the one that sends us every year, a cost analysis. So I wouldn't have the ones for the future because they produce those
Okay.
things. But I can, have the cost.
At least for next year, so we can make a projection.
Sure, fiscal year 25, all the
Thank you.
TRA
Ms. Patricia,
costs. Yes,
I know that the city has been paying for a lot of the water that is being used. Does that come out of our general funds?
what the city uses itself,
From what I understood, is that Lancaster started charging, more instead of taking it to the citizens for them to make up for that. It had not been done.
that is correct. The water rates remain the same and the city absorbs that cost.
And that falls back on the water department.
The water fund, yes,
Yes, that's the reason that our water fund is down,
yes.
is because the city is paying for water.
It's subsidizing the cost
Yes.
that
yes.
the citizens use.
Mhm.
The city subsidizes that cost because the city of Lancaster keeps increasing the cost to the city and we don't charge more.
Right, right.
So we eat that cost. So, good conversations, you know, I think that you should think about, getting the water rate study. And, we can certainly recommend or talk, I know we were talking to someone last year, or the city was talking to someone last year. I can reach out to them again and see what does it entail for us to get, you know, that going again and give us like a cost estimate of it. It is, like I said, very thorough and they require a lot of information from the city, from the staff.
Right.
So we can do that also. Good points. So the next pie chart will just show you the water sewer fund revenues by type. And it's basically the same thing, you know, water revenues, sewer revenues. Those are the major income producers for the city, for the water and sewer fund. Now, for the water and sewer fund, there were no new personnel requests for fiscal year 26. So the department maintains its current full-time employee count of 7 full-time employees and 3 full-time employees that are a 50-50 cost share with the general fund. They have a total of 10. So there's 3 people that divide their time between general fund, public works, you know, streets and so forth, and water and sewer fund. One of them is Wayne. He's paid by both funds. That's a usual and customary thing that cities do. So there are 2 new capital requests for this fund, and it's a water utility service truck with a total cost of $75,250 and a Cat Mini excavator for $73,000. Those 2 items are included in the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget. So that's the water and sewer fund expenses.
But we really need these items, right?
Yes, that's why we left them in there.
Right. This is to help us here in the city.
That is correct.
Because a lot of this stuff, we either have to go out and rent machines or get someone else to come in and do it for us.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
So the total proposed expenses, the budget for fiscal year 2026 is about $4.3 million, and this includes the capital items, debt service payments to Trinity River Authority for the 10 Mile Creek agreement, which we just discussed, water purchases from the city of Lancaster, sewer treatment costs from Dallas Water Utilities, and a Dallas County debt that we have an agreement with them for water transmission pipeline, and all other costs related to operations such as staff and so forth. So the total net increase in costs as compared to the projections for fiscal year 25 is about 13%, due to an increase in cost to other organizations as mentioned above, and as council and mayor have mentioned, due to an increase that the city absorbs. Water and sewer fund expenses by type is the next page, with personnel costs at 18%. And the next one, actually the major one is about 57% in utilities, $2.4 million, and what actually that includes is everything that I just mentioned. All your costs for water purchases, sewer treatment, TRA, and others. And your capital outlay that has been requested by staff for water and sewer purposes. The proposed water sewer fund for fiscal year 2026 is a balanced budget with a net income of about $28,000, which will go into fund balance. It's a very tiny amount of income. The projected ending cash and investments is about $1.7 million. Right now, we do have about 90 days in that fund, which is good, but it would not take care of infrastructure. Please note that the TRA debt service will continue to increase year over year, as well as cost to purchase water and to treat wastewater. And I do mention in this slide, a water rate study is recommended so that the water and sewer fund can sustain future debt service payments as well as much needed infrastructure updates. That's the water and sewer fund. Next is the Wilmer Community Development Corporation. Community Development Corporation highlights, they have revenues and sales taxes of about $3,050,000, and that is budgeted for fiscal year 26, which is a 3% increase from the end of fiscal year projections. That is completely tied to the general fund revenue sales taxes, by the way. Interest revenue is budgeted at about $55,000, and TxDOT Green Ribbon grant reimbursements are estimated at about $263,000. That's just an estimate depending on when we get the invoices. We might not get anything next year. Just depends when they send them in to us and we process them, and what date they stamp on there. And so TxDOT reimburses the city for that. In expenditures, personnel and EDC director is back on the budget, and that personnel cost is $115,220 for an annual salary, which will be split with the CDC. And there are a total of 3 full-time employees in this fund. The senior center coordinator is now split 75-25 with the general fund. Right now, I believe they're split 50-50, and in order to alleviate some of the cost to the general fund, it was suggested that the CDC pay more of that salary.
What are the 3 positions, other than the director?
Oh, there's a director, the senior center coordinator, and then, oh my gosh.
Do we have the librarian consultant paid out of this?
A what?
Is the librarian consultant paid out of this, that company?
Yes, but it is not,
But
they're
it's not an employee?
They're not employees, no, they're not employees, so it's, who gets paid, doesn't Dylan get paid out of there?
Right.
Okay, so the marketing
Marketing specialist.
specialist, senior service coordinator currently filled, And then the EDC director, CDC director is the one that's vacant, that is included in there, so yes. Sorry, I forgot about,
Okay.
about Dylan. Okay. So here's just a little snapshot of the total proposed for CDC revenues. 3.3 million, expenditures 2.781, net income of 586,000 that goes into their fund balance. The CDC also pays, like, Councilmember Jacobs mentioned, it pays for the library contract, it pays for a lot of city events, and in fact, we're moving the city events all to the CDC, so also to give the general fund a little break for those costs. So the 4th of July and Pioneer Days, Christmas, all of that will be coming out of the CDC budget for this next fiscal year, okay?
Excuse me. This is showing salaries for the EDC and CDC. If they haven't met in a long time, but they still have a salary coming monthly, just cause they're, in that position?
Yes, because, so like, let's say the senior center coordinator, she's still working at the senior center. And then the marketing specialist also is still working.
Right.
For the CDC and EDC, yes.
So if the position is not filled, it just stays in the fund balance. We don't currently have a CDC director,
That's correct.
and so it's budgeted,
Mhm.
but the position is left
Vacant.
vacant.
Yes.
So that money that would be monthly salary is staying in general fund.
That is correct, and the EDC.
No, or I mean, as CDC funds.
Yes.
rather. It's
So-
staying in there. It's not a check being written to go to somebody magically because there's no one there. So,
That is correct, yes.
and
There- I-
they're
I-
not meeting, that money is not
I
being spent.
believe the EDC, has a consultant that is going to be looking for, like a recruiting firm that will be looking for an EDC director. That's my understanding. So that's why that position was budgeted there. And so the CDC splits that cost, but it's an EDC director. So we're getting into the Wilmer Economic Development Corporation, which is the EDC. Proposed revenues for them is 3.1 million, sales tax 3,050,000, interest income 60,000. As we discussed in the CDC budget, EDC director salary and benefits are split 50-50, and that's 115,220 proposed. With the fund balance or the actual quote income of 687,681 going into fund balance. EDC right now, I think, only has 2 people, 2 budgeted personnel, which is the EDC, which is vacant, and then Dylan, the marketing specialist.
So Dylan split?
Yes. Mhm. So that's CDC and EDC. Any other questions on those corporations? Next to the Capital Projects Fund. So the Capital Projects Fund is where all the capital projects, or CIP, are tracked and paid. This fund is mostly funded by certificates of obligation, tax notes, grants, and other contributions. The 2 major projects during fiscal year 25-26 are the completion of the new police building and the new public works building, which I believe will be completed by September. The budget for fiscal year 26 allows for some contingencies and invoices carried over to the new fiscal year to finish out the projects. Again, we don't really know what's going to come in next year. Maybe there will be nothing left to pay. It just depends on the completion of the project and how the contractors turn in their invoices. So there might be some stragglers that come in fiscal year 26 and will have the funds already in there in the fund balance. So there is no revenue other than interest income for the Capital Projects Fund, and we don't know what the interest rates will be, so this is just an estimate. $980,000 for the Capital Projects Fund for the funds that are in all the investment pools. and also depends on the drawdown of those funds. Expenditures, we just put in $100,000 for contingencies because again, we expect all of the projects to be completed this fiscal year. And so all the bills will be paid this fiscal year. So that will give us an ending fund balance of about $2.4 million. As far as I know, there are no capital projects planned for fiscal year '26, no new projects. And if there were any new projects for fiscal year '26, then we'll of course come back to council and amend the budget so that those expenditures are accounted for. The next fund, or funds, are special revenue funds, that's what they're known as, and it's the court technology and court building security funds. These two restricted funds derive their revenues from fines collected through the Wilmer Municipal Court. The revenues are budgeted conservatively, and the expenditures are budgeted to conform to legal constraints for use of those funds. So for court technology, we are estimating about $22,000 just based on trends, and then some interest income for a total revenue of $31,000. Court technology expenditures are budgeted for a $20,000 annual court software fees, $46,000 for tickets on the go, a new ticketing system, and $14,600 for, that includes copier lease, replacement equipment, and projector for the court. Total budgeted expenditures are $80,783, and there are funds available for this budget in the court technology fund balance. For the court building security fund, the fines and fees are $25,000 of revenues budgeted, interest about $11,500, total revenue $36,500. Court security expenditures are budgeted to include a $10,000 camera and recording device, and $5,000 fees for the bailiff, or when there is court, for total budgeted expenditures of $15,000. Those are the special revenue funds. The next one is the TIF fund, tax increment finance. In the past, there was no budget for this fund. It derives its revenue from property tax revenues and captured values received in the zone. In the past, like I said, there were no transfers made into the TIF by the general fund. This fiscal year, we're budgeting $500,000 to be transferred from M&O property tax revenue. Development agreements will be coming due soon, and the general fund must begin transferring all the property taxes due to the TIF in order to pay those agreements. We do not yet have the total. I am working with the TERS consultant to find out how much we owe them.
That was gonna be my question.
And hopefully we'll have enough. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
So revenues for fiscal year '26, we have $500,000 transferring from general fund. Like I said, no expenditures are budgeted until the city receives pay requests from developers. We will find out in the next few weeks.
And what happens if we don't have enough?
Well, we will have to come back to council to figure out a way to pay these developers.
Because we've got an increase in developers in that zone over here.
We have to figure out that next step. Next is the police seizure fund. This is also a restricted fund. Police seizure fund is to account for seized cash and property by the Wilmer Police Department. Items and cash are counted as revenue only by a court order. They're just estimating about $12,800. We don't know how much is going to come in. It's just an estimate. There are no expenditures planned for fiscal year 2026 out of that fund. As I said, that's a restricted fund. They have their own little bank account, and like I said, we can't pay anything or buy anything unless we have a court order that, you know, we seized a car or whatever, and then the city police department can keep it. So usually it goes to auction and we get some cash, we put it into that fund, and then they can buy some items that are in accordance with all of the legal statutes of how they can use those funds. So those are all the funds for the city. Very good questions coming from council. This combined budget summary, this next page, just shows you the different funds that we have in the city that we budget for. Their fund number, what type of fund they are, estimated fund balance at the beginning, October 1st, total revenues budgeted, total expenditures budgeted, transfers in and out, and then the estimated fund balance for all funds at the end of fiscal year 2026. So just to summarize the total primary government, we have total revenues budgeted of about 36 million, total expenditures of about 30 million, leaving a fund balance of $29.8 million at 9/30/2026. So this proposed budget includes these major items: a 3% cost of living salary increase to personnel, the addition of 2 new positions, the custodian and the accountant, the elimination of 9 vacant positions, the freeze of 6 vacant police officer positions that can be reversed by council at any time, a 14% increase in healthcare costs for all full-time employees, and retirees from the city of Wilmer. So this affects the retirees that used to work here as well. A position for the EDC, capital equipment and vehicle in the water and sewer fund, a 3.58 cents increase in the tax rate, and a 4% increase in general fund budgeted expenditures.
Can I stop you for just a second?
Yes,
Okay, the second bullet, the 2 new positions. The custodian will actually save us money because we will not be contracting.
that is correct.
Right.
And the accountant will save us money because we will no longer have the director and, no, what was the?
Finance manager
Finance manager
and accounting tech.
and the accounting tech. And together, they would be more
Oh, yes.
than just one accountant. So by by adding these 2 positions, we will actually come out in the black. We will have more money
Yes.
than if we stay as we are now.
Yes, this is a cost savings.
So even though we're adding 2 positions,
Mhm.
by doing away with those others,
That's
we
correct.
come out with more money. We come out with more money.
That is correct, because
Thank you. I just wanted clarification.
as I did the assessment of the costs of those 2 positions in finance, in my experience, you don't need those. You need an accountant, a senior accountant, and a finance director. They should be able to do the job. So there are 2 major points that I want to really reiterate to council. 2 things. The first point, the general fund expenditures are only going up by 4%. The tax rate, the proposed tax rate of 4.67928 is necessary for the city to pay its debt. Those are the 2 things you have to remember. I thank you so much for your interest and engagement in this budget process. I surely appreciate your attention and all of your feedback. I will provide you with what you requested by Thursday, so they can be in your packets and you can make an informed decision. We do have public hearings on Thursday. I will be back for the tax rate and the budget. We have the ordinances coming up for budget adoption. And I really enjoyed working on this budget for you all. And I respect all of your feedback and concerns. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. With there being no other business, this concludes our agenda for this evening. If there is any further business, if there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 7:10. Thank you all for being here, and have a good evening.